When Chapter 1 first released, Ralsei was undoubtedly one of the most mysterious characters we knew. Everyone thought that Chris was Kara and that Ralsei was Asriel, but obviously we know that's not true now. Probably. All Ralsei was back then was just a hopeful and mysterious, goat prince who just stood at Castletown waiting for our arrival. And since then, 4 chapters later, Ralsei has completely grown into a character we could have never expected. A very complex character who has many different values and beliefs that almost contradict each other, gaining what he feels as meaning in life through finding new friends and through Susie's optimism. Slowly over the chapters, he's realized that he has a purpose other than to just complete the prophecy. With that being said, the prophecy is a tragic one. I believe that Ralsei will end up dying by the end of Deltarune. I don't mean Castletown gets sealed, I mean that Ralsei specifically will die. But before jumping right into that, we have to first understand what exactly Ralsei is and what death means in the context of Deltarune. So without further ado, let's begin by asking the repeated question of what is Ralsei? This may arguably just be the most asked question in all of Deltarune after, who's the knight? By now I think the community has come to a more general consensus on what he isn't, though, and that's an item. Originally it was theorized that Ralsei was Chris's knife, or Chris's old horn headband that they try to wear to blend in with their monster friends. But with the knowledge we have today, it has been shown time and time again that Ralsei is clearly not a regular Darkner. He, for one, can teleport between dark worlds, and this is actually why people always thought it was something that Chris had, as obviously if Chris had an item that turned into Ralsei, it would make sense why he would keep appearing in every subsequent dark world. However, we have confirmation that he at least isn't Chris's knife from multiple chapters now. In Chapter 4, Ralsei is waiting for us in Castletown, saying he missed us as well. We know that objects in the light world, even before ever turning into a Darkner for the first time, experience real life as well. Tenna knew all of Chris's backstory, even though he was never a Darkner. Well, at least as far as we know. I don't think Ralsei would be missing us if he was in Chris's pocket the entire time, and experienced the morning of Chapter 4 with us going to church and everything. Even back in Chapter 1, one of the first things he ever says to us is that he's been waiting here in Castletown his entire life for us to arrive. In both of these instances, it just wouldn't make sense for him to be an item, since he's been waiting there for us rather than him just appearing. This means it can't be anything on Chris, and while you could say Susie just has Chris's knife, we know Chris had it because they created the Flower King Dark World, and of course they leave and we don't see Susie take it. It also can't be the horned headband, as they were just in a dark world with Ralsei, so Susie would have to carry the horned headband from Flower King to the closet, which clearly did not happen. And if Susie already knew about the fact that Ralsei was a headband, she wouldn't have been so confused in Chapter 3 regarding how he couldn't go to the festival with them. So now going back to the question, what is he? And no, he's not Asriel, and this has been said so many times and shown so many times, I'm not even going to waste your time disproving it. But either way, it's clearly something abnormal. Flowery even calls him an impossibility, implying that Ralsei's mere existence alone is something completely out of the ordinary. I've seen the theory that Ralsei is a memory of Asriel materialized into a Darkner, but I don't think that's true. This is because Susie's makes the second sanctuary, and in it Ralsei's color changes, but his body or self does not change at all. He's still the same person. We see with Gerson in the literal same Dark World that if you try to create a Dark World patterned off the memory of a person, it won't be the same. Susie does not have the same memories Chris has of Asriel. She didn't grow up with him, and so it would make no sense for him to be the exact same if he was based off memories that Chris has. So now that we've ruled out basically every other option, what is he? All the way back in Chapter 1, during Ralsei's prophecy summary, he talks about the Grand Fountain of Castletown, which flows with pure darkness. This pure darkness fountain is what allows the entirety of the Dark World to have balance in the first place, and any new dark fountains being added would shift the balance of light and dark. That's the entire reason we go on the first quest to, seal the fountain in the Card Kingdom. This fountain also seems to have capabilities that most other fountains do not have, as the pure darkness allows any Darkner inside to always be normal and never turn to stone, even if it's not their typical home. The only other being we've outright seen has had this, and has been said to be made out of pure darkness, is a Titan, but I think that we've seen more than one person made from pure darkness. Ralsei. I've heard others say this a few times, but I personally haven't seen a full conclusion on this, and to me it seems pretty obvious. This also seems to be the only realistic conclusion to me, and unless we get some random new piece of information in the next 2 chapters about Ralsei's identity, it really is the only thing we know Ralsei could be. I'm not saying Ralsei's a Titan, by the way, I've seen that, okay? He's rather just made of pure darkness, like a Titan. Despite that though, the two of them do have a lot of similarities, but probably just because they're both born from pure darkness. Titans, no matter which fountain they emerge from, seem to have the same look to them. From Ralsei's depiction of them in his Roaring Prophecy, it seems like they have two main forms. Interestingly enough, one of the two looks like the knight, but besides that, in the actual prophecy, it only shows one form of the Titan, the one that we see. There probably is two versions of them, we just only see the first one, but whatever. All of this to prove that no matter which fountain the Titan is from, they are the same. They are always going to be mindless beings of pure destruction, always going to have the same save point star thing on their face, and always be made of darkness. This logic is the exact same as Ralsei's, and it would explain a lot. For one, it would explain why Ralsei never changes his appearance, even in Susie's second sanctuary, except for a few niche circumstances, which actually help his case of being made of darkness. We'll get back to that later, though. While his color hue does shift, so does Chris's and Susie's, who are lighteners, so I don't think that the color shift really means much besides the fact that someone else made the fountain. As we can see, with the other darkeners inside the sanctuaries, though, something is clearly different with most of them. The organics, more specifically, completely changed form, with the statues turning to life and the life ones turning to statues in the Dark World. Along with that, all of the enemies and the characters we see in the second sanctuary are different from the ones we see in the first, even though they're made in the exact same room. The third sanctuary, having the same characters as the first, can be explained that the knight made both of the fountains, so they were created by the same person, and thus the fountains are going to have similar, if not the same characteristics. But Ralsei just doesn't follow any of this. He stays the same and does not change his appearance at all, just like a Titan, who is also made of pure darkness. Going back to what I said earlier though, there are a few niche circumstances where he changes appearance. This is a photo of all of them, and I wouldn't consider really thinking about this too much. It's not like his appearance changes as soon as the fountain is created, just like every other darkener. Rather, he just shapeshifts into a different look. This is actually similar to how the knight can shapeshift, though we don't know for sure if the knight's armor or entire being is made of pure darkness. It does do dark attacks, which help imply it. But anyways, yeah, no other darkener shapeshifts like him, and him being an object wouldn't make any sense, and because objects obviously can't really change, and so neither would the memory thing, but that was from before. And Netskis also disguise themselves, by the way, they don't shapeshift, so it's completely unique to him, basically. This could also explain how he randomly appears in every Dark World. He is made directly from the darkness, and so he can appear in any Dark World, without us even being there first. This is also foreshadowed in a few places. Firstly with Flowery. Him calling Ralsei an impossibility is probably meant to indicate that he isn't a real being, but unlike normal darkeners, isn't an object in the light world either, or anything at all. He is just a living being based from the darkness, likely being shaped by the prophecy. On the topic of the prophecy, that's what else I believe foreshadows this. Not the actual prophecy though, it does indicate it, but we'll get back to his actual panel later. I believe a better interpretation of this is Ralsei's original legend in Chapter 1. When he is revealing the heroes, he calls himself a prince from the dark. I believe this is supposed to show how he is literally from the dark, being born from it. So now we can see that Ralsei is definitely an interesting, complex being that's probably made from the dark. But why is this important? Why do we have to know that he's made of pure darkness? Well, it's because it means that death actually means something. No one really dies in Deltarune. In normal combat, if you try to kill something, they just run away and you get stronger. The closest thing we have to an enemy dying is either snowgraving or swooning. Side note, there's also petrification, but you can be healed back to full if you just go to the Grand Fountain, or if a fountain gets sealed, then you can just become a normal object again, so I mean, I wouldn't really consider that really. The Roaring obviously turns others to stone, but we haven't really seen that and don't quite know how it'll just play out just yet, so we don't really know. Anyways, back to the video. Swooning I feel like is less dangerous, as even if you get swooned in the Dark World, you can still immediately get healed back to full by a mint, or you could technically heal back to someone to full with just regular items. I've seen a video of someone doing that. And the same goes for when you get knocked normally as well. And by the way, when Ralsei gets knocked, he normally turns into a pile of fluff, and it's just his clothing. But during the Flowery fight, if he gets knocked, he just stays there in the sprite, showing that nothing was really bad was even happening to him, and he could have always just stayed standing if he really wanted to. When you're Snowgrave though, you do get affected in the light world, and seriously affected. It is unclear what would happen to a Darkener if they're being Snowgraved, as while you could hack in the Snowgrave spell and kill something, it's obviously not canon to what actually happens. But you can freeze them with Ice Shock. This probably doesn't completely kill them, just freezing them instead in a place of purgatory almost. It's unclear, honestly, if it does kill them or not, to be fair. Snowgrave is labeled as fatal, so we can assume it would kill a Darkner, but Ice Shock just says it deals damage. Even then, nothing outright dies. Ice Shock still freezes enemies, and Snowgrave really freezes enemies. Nothing is seen fading away akin to Undertale. Except for one enemy. There is one enemy in the game that actually dies normally by fighting. The Titan spawn. It is a completely unique occurrence that only happens once and is very unknown as far as I'm seeing. When you attack the Titan spawn, obviously Chris deals significantly more damage with the Black Shard, making it much easier to kill them. When killed, you even get a stat in your page that says slain 2. There's actually a bug with this, as if you kill one of the Titan spawn and then purify, it still says slain 2, but that's probably just a bug. But besides that, the Titan spawn can actually die, clearly, and the Titan is also implied to be able to die, but of course we can't kill it because of the fact that it heals before we can do anything. You don't even actually straight up kill it, rather you just go inside of it and seal it like a fountain. This is similar to killing, but not in the same way as just going and fighting an enemy and killing it, though the outcome is the same. The Titan is just no longer there and he doesn't exist anymore. This is most likely because they are made of pure darkness. Even when a Darkner gets hurt badly and runs away, they can be fixed in the light world. This can be seen with Tenna and now Flowery. But beings made of pure darkness do not have that ability. They can heal themselves, sure, but when they die, they are truly dead. This is why Ralsei dying could mean something more significant than other random Darkners dying. You can't go back and save him afterwards. But how do we even know if he's going to die? Well, I think there's a lot of pieces of information that could foreshadow or point towards it. To begin, let's look at a song from Chapter 5, specifically this one right here actually. This is Good Night, Sweet Prince, which plays when using the Bromide R, an item you can get from the vending machines in Chapter 5 in the cafe after purchasing a drink. When using it, this artwork of Flowery sitting on Ralsei's plushie can be seen. Now there's two main things I want to go at here, but first let's begin by looking at the song. The song's name is Good Night, Sweet Prince, as I just stated, which could be some obvious foreshadowing to Ralsei's death. Sweet Prince could obviously be referring to Ralsei, and Good Night is what it's said sometimes when someone dies or is about to die. Along with that, in the actual artwork, we can see that Flowery is wearing Ralsei's clothing. Flowery also has deep rivalry with Ralsei, obviously, but what ends up happening to Flowery? He gets slashed in half. Him wearing Ralsei's clothing could be foreshadowing for a similar fate happening to Ralsei. Okay, now change his music, please. Anyways, Toive is clearly not scared of doing foreshadowing with his music. We can clearly see this with the most absolutely beautiful example of It's Raining Somewhere Else in Undertale. I shouldn't have to explain this, but hearing it the place where it rained genuinely had me at a standstill when I played Chapter 4 for the first time. And there's also the song That Day in Chapter 5, which obviously alludes to whatever the hell Asgore the Vague Post King is trying to talk to Chris about throughout all of Chapter 5 and the whole lore explanation. So it's definitely not out of the line to see Toby use musical titles as foreshadowing. Next, looking at a piece of evidence I've actually used in a previous theory, in Chapter 2, Noelle talks to Rudy in the hospital. During one of these conversations, we can hear them talking about Dragon Blazers as she's playing it, and she talks about how she can't do fire magic now that the mage is removed from the party. Obviously in Chapter 5, we have seen Ralsei doing fire magic, and he's the mage of the party, so this could be foreshadowing Ralsei's absence from the next chapters, and if anything, Chapter 6, since Noelle is going to be in Castletown and in our party, meaning someone would have to leave. Obviously Chris couldn't leave because they literally, they're how we see the game, and Susie wouldn't leave with Noelle in the party, so Ralsei is our most likely candidate. Do I think he's gonna die in the beginning of Chapter 6 so he can't be in the party? Probably not, but it is interesting to see the foreshadowing that Ralsei will leave the party at all. Moving on to Ralsei's dialogue himself, he's definitely has said some things that could foreshadow him taking, great pain or death itself. First, all the way back in Chapter 1, one of the first things he says to us is that he'd protect the heroes with his life. This happens if you say that you know the legend already after Lancer busts in. Next in Chapter 4, when the beautiful sequence happens where each party member tanks the knight's knives in order for one another to live, when Ralsei gets hit for the first time, he says, "Susie, Chris, if there's any pain I can take in your place, I'll be there, okay?" So, definitely maybe some foreshadowing there. And then finally, after Susie's crash out to Ralsei when he reveals that Gerson can't be in the second sanctuary, he says, "I'm sorry, I don't tell you everything, it's just sometimes knowing things, it hurts. And if anyone's gonna be hurt, let it be me, okay?" Ralsei knows the prophecy, and so he might be alluding to the fact that he will have to take a lot of pain in the future, so maybe he's trying to tell them what's going on before it actually happens. Speaking of the prophecy, Moving on from the small pieces of foreshadowing, I think there's a much bigger one, all spawning from chapter 4, this of course being the prophecy itself. Not quite the final prophecy, though we will get to that in a little bit. First we have to look at Ralsei's own prophecy panel. Ralsei is described as the prince alone in deepest dark. In the beginning, this was true, as he was waiting for us alone in the empty town since the beginning of his life. But now he's definitely not alone, as he has all of Castletown and the rest of the Fun Gang to come for him. Technically this means he is defying the prophecy, but I think it could mean something else. The prophecy, as we know, is intentionally written to be very ambiguous as to what it actually means. The first hero probably means either Chris or the Vessel, the second is either Susie or Noelle, and the third is either Ralsei or Lancer. But I think it's intentionally written to encompass all the candidates, rather than just only talking about one specific hero. Since this means that it is, or just generally it probably is talking about Ralsei, him being described as alone in deepest dark, despite him being with his friends, could make sense if it was meant to describe both his beginning and his end. He began as a prince, waiting for the heroes alone in the dark, and ends by dying. If he were to die, it would absolutely be in deepest dark, and after death he would no longer be with anybody else, and thus alone. It's unclear in Deltarune if there's something like a typical afterlife exists within the game. They do mention heaven and hell, and the angel of course, but we don't know exactly what they mean by that yet, and Ralsei being a Darkner might not even go into an afterlife in-game, as it might only be for Lightners. If this is true, he would end up alone, with nothing else but death. Obviously we don't know for sure what the implications of the afterlife are in Deltarune, or if there is one for Darkners, but I'm just going off the little information we have. Secondly, we have to look at the final prophecy. Now we obviously don't know what it is yet, but when Susie reads it, she says that both her and Chris wouldn't let it happen, but especially Ralsei wouldn't let it happen. This is weird, almost as if the worst fate happens to Ralsei. And no, I don't think it's sealing the Grand Fountain. This is because the final prophecy states that both worlds will be saved. The Grand Fountain is what is holding the Dark World together at all, and so sealing it would be contradictory and wouldn't make sense. So does this mean that only Ralsei gets hurt in the final prophecy? Probably not, as Susie says that they wouldn't let it happen either, and it's implied that something will happen to them too. Along with that, this is just a smaller piece of evidence that might not actually foreshadow anything or might not mean anything, but Susie putting blood on Ralsei's face after shattering the final prophecy could be symbolic of him getting injured severely later. Maybe not, but still something to think about. Now I want to talk about something a little bit different. The writing standpoint. This is where I think a lot of theories happen to fall short, and while I'm not saying that any theory that doesn't perfectly align with the story is wrong, I will say that it definitely doesn't help it. With that, I'd say that Ralsei dying fits perfectly with how he has been written so far. Ralsei has been afraid of the prophecy since day one, so afraid that he told us a summary and didn't reveal the ending until he was unwillingly watching it be revealed to Susie. But as we've seen from all 5 chapters, Ralsei has had some insane character development. He's becoming more accepting of himself as a person, and over time has become more open to the idea of the prophecy changing. He always knew in his heart that the prophecy couldn't change, and there's been so many signs throughout the game that the prophecy will not change or could not change. Even outside of the game, there's things that Toby Fox has said that shows that there's not going to be a difference in the prophecy's ending. But he has to hope to change the ending, and he does hope as much as he can. We know that Deltarune's ending is a tragedy, and would it not be tragic for him to come all this way and try his hardest to change fate, only to succumb to it in the end? Personally, while I obviously don't want him to die, I think it would be a fitting end for him of all people. The person who tried so hard to avoid the ending is ultimately going to have to face it head first. Again, does this mean that I think the final prophecy is only about Ralsei dying? No, not necessarily. In fact, I think there's a lot of evidence that it affects most, if not all, the Fun Gang, like with Ralsei praying for Susie to be okay. But I do think that somewhere in the ending, Ralsei, whether as a sacrifice or in vain, will have to die. Thank you all for watching my 3rd ever Deltarune theory. My previous 2 absolutely blew up, and especially the most recent one, and I really do want to thank you guys for that. I'm still nearly in a state of shock from even seeing such an insane analytics page, and I really am thankful for that. There's a chance I still got lucky twice though, and I think that whether or not this video gets popular is going to be the sign to me to completely go through with the Deltarune. I do not expect it to get as popular as my previous one. I mean, that one even got hyped. I don't know how, but assuming it does well, as about the Rudy one, I'd feel pretty safe. But yeah, thank you all for watching. I have a Discord server that would be linked in the description where we talk about stuff like this, among other things. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Thanks for 5,000 subscribers. Subscribe if you want. See you all later. Toodles.